cats are strictly carnivores. They need the meat. Dogs are omnivores, that they can eat the vegetables, some fruits, as well as the meat. Those two basic animals would have different requirements. One of the misconceptions for cat owners is they think that canned food has more calories than dry food, but it's actually the opposite. And I do appreciate when somebody comes in, because it can get kind of a tough subject that a lot of people are pretty miffed when you tell their pet's overweight. There's kind of a conception, well, I should feed kitten food to my pet, to my cat till a year of age, and I don't think that's a good idea. I'm trying to help the health of the animal, and a lot of times they may interpret that I'm making fun of the pet, or I'm saying you're a bad owner, and that's definitely not the case.
So it's been a month, a little over a month, right, since the last
5 weeks.
5 weeks, yeah, since we last talked about everything pets.
The language of pets.
The language of pets. That's correct. That's you're absolutely right, Dr. Lange. It is the language of pets. I think last time we spoke about pet emergencies.
Yes.
How to differentiate whether something is worth.
You need to get into the veterinarian right away.
Yeah.
Can it wait a day or two?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yes.
So in this episode, which is episode number 5. We will be talking about more of, how would you say it? Dietary maintenance.
Nutrition's a good.
Nutrition.
Before we started talking.
Yeah.
Nutrition is good. It's interesting, very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good topic, and
yeah.
like people, nutrition's very important for the pets. So it's a good thing we can expound on.
Yes, sounds good. So welcome to episode 5 of Language of Pets podcast. My name's Calvin, and
Dr. Daniel Lange.
Dan Lange.
Dan the man.
Dan the man. Of how many years again?
It was 44 years and 8 months. Now it's 44 years and 9 months. I'm just teasing. 44 years, yeah. I graduated in 1981 and previous century before. And I lived in Iowa at the time, so I went to Iowa State University at Ames, Iowa.
Okay.
They're predominantly large animal because, as you may or may not know, Iowa has a lot of pigs.
Really?
So that's kind of their main focus.
I thought
Farm
you were gonna
animals,
say
but of course, people have pets in Iowa too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think Florida is one of those states where you can have like pretty much any type of animal, like tigers, giraffes, or what have you. Do you know? You may not know, but do you know what kind of is it like a statewide law, or what kind of statutes determine, what kind of pets that you're allowed to have?
I think it differs, and I don't know for Missouri, but I think it differs from state to state what pets you can have. I generally don't recommend having exotic animals. In recent years, I had a couple people bring in a lynx, kind of like a bobcat type animal, and I may have mentioned before, but initially when I first saw it, great pet, almost like a dog, cat, but I saw it at 5 months of age for another thing, and it was not a very pleasant animal. And there just isn't a lot of research. What is truly the best nutrition if you're going to keep captive exotic or wild animal?
Do they quickly turn into their natural instinct?
They do. I know a lot of time, and it kind of drives me crazy. People think, well, you see these stories on TV where people want to go and pet the bison like at Yellowstone or whatever, and it just drives me crazy that how do they think they have the ability to tame an animal that isn't around people and weighs 2 tons, and you just can't predict its behavior. And I just feel like that's kind of the case with most exotic animals.
Okay.
It just, they have instincts. They're not meant to be around people. And so I think it's not a very...
And it takes a few generations to domesticate them, I would presume. Okay. What would you say is one of those exotic animals that are easier to adapt for domestication?
I mean, do you have something in, a particular type of animal that you were thinking?
I see a lot of videos online. There's tigers.
Yeah.
There was a couple that lives in an apartment building, and they have a puma.
Yep.
So I guess those are more along the feline
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
species. So
Yep.
there is a little bit of an easier adaptation or way to get them domesticated. But I mean, to me, it's just freaky because you never know what they're thinking, and at any point,
Yep.
you know, they're twice, 3 times the size of you. And
You know, what if it jumped the fence, or you just didn't have the proper, or you underestimated what the animal could do,
yeah,
you know, outside. And I just feel like those kind of animals, how do you get proper exercise or stimulation for them?
mm-hmm.
It's hard enough for the house cats. I just see a lot of house cats, you know, just kept in a confined area. And I just feel like our general house cats don't get enough stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's why we run into behavioral problems.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be even, you know, more difficult or challenging to have an exotic feline.
Yeah, yeah. Because I would think, you know, at any point you're going to turn into lunch.
Right.
And you never know.
And there have been cases where that's happened. Even, you know, they've had circuses or groups where there's trainers, and there have been trainers that have been injured or killed.
Mm.
And here these animals have apparently had quite a bit of training done, but sometimes you just can't predict what may set that particular animal
The
off.
trigger, yeah.
Right. Or if they're out in an audience, is all the noise or distraction causes anxiety or
Mm-hmm.
stress to them.
Mm-hmm.
And
You just
you know,
never
you can't
know.
perceive that because when you're training, you're pretty much one-on-one or just a few people around the animal. But what if all of a sudden you have a crowd of 10,000 people hollering or oohing and on and all that, or, you know, or make some strange noises, and I
Yeah.
think that's potential catastrophe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, perfect kind of good segue to talk about nutrition. when you throw lions and tigers into the middle of the, of humans, it's a big feast for them. You know?
Indeed.
So yeah, today we want to talk about a little bit of pet nutrition. Some questions that are from the internet is, am I feeding my pet too much, too little?
Right.
The right
And obesity
type of
is the
diet.
main. I think you and I, Kelvin, need to talk today about obesity because 50% of cats and dogs are overweight.
Mm-hmm.
So as we progress, because people need to maybe not go just by the label on the bag, that's a guideline, but I think you need to check the pets periodically, weight,
Mhm.
because when you see them every day, you often aren't going to appreciate when there's a change, either
Yeah.
losing weight or gaining weight.
Yeah, yeah. My parents see me every day, and they don't notice if I get fatter or skinnier. So I definitely know the case. But yeah, so
That's a good analogy.
let's just bring up the question. How do I know if I am feeding the right amount, the correct amount to my dog or cat?
Well, again, a good guideline is either get it online or look at the bag, and most of the time it'll kind of give you a rough idea how much
yeah.
to feed.
Mm-hmm.
I have talked to some nutritional companies. They will come by the animal hospitals, and of course they're trying to sell their product. And they have intimated to me that in many cases when they do their studies, how much to feed, for some reason, they use animals that are more high performance. Maybe not the typical suburban animal that just
Or a lap
goes out the
dog
potty or
something.
goes to the end of the block, or
Yeah.
and doesn't get a lot of exercise. So I think right then you may overfeed the pet, because I think they use different barometers or parameters
Mm-hmm.
for the pets.
And just for liability's sake, they never want to be too precise. They want to cover a broad range, I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah. So
So a lot of times I recommend, and again, I know life gets in the way. Oh my God, another thing I have to do. But if you can, I recommend to weigh your pet once a month.
okay.
And that may be difficult if the veterinary clinic or hospital is not too far, or maybe they have a scale where you board or groom the pet. Maybe if it's closer, you can do that. But I think you need to get some numbers and record them on your phone or on a diary. Just keep a sheet
Mm-hmm.
and just see if there's a change. So when you see the veterinarian every 6 months or once a year, you have some numbers for you. We always weigh the pets, but we just have one reading for each time you come in. And so it just really helps me a lot if I know what kind of numbers are we dealing with. And there are some diseases like diabetes where the pets are eat perfectly fine, but they're losing weight because of the diabetes. They can't use their food efficiently. So maybe that would help us determine maybe where a medical problem is starting to develop,
Yeah.
let alone just our general weight.
Okay. Is there a way like to kind of gauge like for humans, there's your age and your height kind of gives you an idea of what body weight range you should be within. Is there something like that for pets?
Well, it gets a little complicated because, as you may know, recently the AKC, American Kennel Club, have picked a new breed of dog, and it's the 200th breed. And so some dogs are at adult weight or 3 or 4 pounds, and some of the larger breeds are close to 200 pounds. So it gets very difficult for each breed to give us a standard.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what we'll try to tell people is that when the pet is standing on all fours on the ground, stand up yourself and look at kind of the hip, the flank area,
Okay.
right in front of the back legs. And we like to see kind of a concave, a little hourglass type figure.
Okay. So got some curves to
So
the
we want to
dog.
see some curves, and if you cannot, and then sometimes with the longer hair animals it makes it a little more difficult, but if you can kind of take your fingers, you can kind of feel, but you do want a little bit of a curvature right in front of the back legs.
Okay. I think you mentioned lightly a few episodes ago about if you can feel the ribs.
And the second one is that if you just kind of touch the trunk, the thorax, the chest of the body, just touch it, you should be able to feel the ribs.
Okay, you should be able to feel the ribs.
Should
Okay.
be able to. But sometimes if you have to, push hard to feel the rib, there's probably too much fatty tissue.
Okay. Okay.
And then the third one is that when you're looking at the animal sideways, that from the chest up to the back legs, looking at the belly, it should go up just a little bit.
there shouldn't be any humps. It should just be a little.
It should
slight
just
dip.
go up and not be straight across, like from the chest
Yeah.
right to the, with the male to the genitalia.
Yeah.
Or if it's going down, then we're too much weight.
Okay.
And I think those are still a little bit subjective, but those are kind of basic
General guidelines.
general guidelines. But again, that's why I like the weight, because you have a specific baseline for your pet, and then we can monitor the change. And so that's why I like that the best. But I think those are 3 general guidelines that you can use. But again, I just don't think when people see their pets every day, as we just said a few minutes ago, you can always appreciate the changing curves and that type of thing. So
Okay.
it gets difficult. But
Sure.
I like the intermittent weight.
Yeah. So if they're unsure, they can always consult a veterinarian.
Yes, of course,
to see.
of course. And I do appreciate when somebody comes in, because it can get kind of a tough subject that a lot of people are pretty miffed when you tell their pet's overweight. So you have to be kind of gentle. And so with the audience here, if you would just go ahead and make the first move.
Yeah. Is my dog
Ask
fat?
the doctor, right? Ask the doctor.
Yeah, just
and
lay
then it
out
makes
for
it
me.
easier.
Yeah.
And then just try to listen. Don't get mad or angry.
Yeah.
We're, I'm trying to help the health of the animal, and a lot of times they may interpret that I'm making fun of the pet, or I'm saying you're a bad owner, and that's definitely not the case. And some people say, I have had a few people come in and they'll just say, I don't care about the weight. I'm going to feed my dog whatever I want. That's the way it is. Well, thank you for telling me, because now
At least they're honest.
right. Then we don't have to discuss it. I don't have to give you a speech, and then you're starting to get red in the face because you don't care.
Yeah.
So I appreciate when somebody's honest, and then we can maybe move on to something else if they truly don't care.
Okay. Is there a brand that you prefer more over the other, or is it more of just ingredients? Is it more important?
Well, it's very difficult because the companies compete against each other, and some make fun of the ingredients. Like they say that they have just natural ingredients, meat, vegetables, and this other competitor has corn. Well, actually, corn is a very good ingredient for our pets. It has protein in there, a lot of nutrients that they need. And so recent articles I've read, you really can't go by the ingredients.
Okay.
And they say chicken. Well, is it the chicken foot?
Yeah.
Is it the breast?
Yeah.
You almost cannot go by the guidelines. I mean, we can talk about it, but the government has done better to kind of pinpoint the guidelines a little bit better, but it's still very difficult to interpret if you just read the ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Well, not too long ago, they were saying that the food pyramid for people was totally the wrong way around, right?
Exactly.
So it could be the same case for pet nutrition and all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it changes all the time. And the dilemma I have is now that there's a lot of companies that are the fresh pet, farm fresh, but it's supposedly a natural food that they'll ship to you, and it's kind of a soft food, and the pictures show the vegetables and meats and all that. I've just had a problem up to this point because I cannot get a lot of information on the research that they've done, and then they badmouth the companies that have the dry kibble, and they say that those foods are over-processed, and that takes all the nutrients out. And so that's very difficult. At this point, I go by how much research, how long has the company been in business, and my favorite companies are like Royal Canin. They're a French company, but they're based in one of their main headquarters in St. Charles, about where I used to work for 30 years, St. Charles, Missouri, about 30 minutes from where we're at right now. And then I like Hills or Science Diet. They're out in Topeka, Kansas, and they have done research for many, many years. And we can talk a little bit later, but they actually make foods for pets that have kidney problems, for diabetic animals, if you have heart issues, trying to lose weight, but they actually have prescription foods that you can purchase for certain health conditions.
Yeah.
And they make the regular foods you get over the counter for puppies, adults, and seniors. And so I just really recommend those companies that I've seen have done a lot of research to recommend to people. But it seems like almost every week a new company comes out. It's just so very difficult. I mean, people love their pets. There's a lot of animals in the States, and so it's a very good field. I mean, if you want to make a few dollars.
Yeah.
So it's a very competitive and lucrative. That's the word I was looking for before. And so there is a lot of people that see the dollar signs, and so they want to get their food out on the market.
Yeah, there's that psychology behind the more expensive the food is, tend to be better.
And I think generally that is the case.
Yeah.
I think, if they're cutting corners, giving you cheaper food, then they're more likely to give you the chicken foot or something that's not, it has as much meat or protein as somebody else where the food is more expensive. So I feel in general you get what you pay for on the foods, and it can add up, especially if you have a large breed dog. But because nutrition is so important, I think you just have to budget for a good quality food.
Yeah. Are you a chef?
I am not.
You're not?
No.
What would you, if you were to come up with a recipe for the perfect meal?
Yeah, it excuse the old, but it's not my bag to do that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I was just thinking something that just slipped out. Go ahead. If I was a chef, would I?
What would you say is the ideal balanced meal for, let's say, for a dog?
Well, let me go back just half a step.
Yeah.
Cats are strictly carnivores. They need the meat. That's they need. Dogs are omnivores, that they can eat the vegetables, some fruits, as well as the meat.
Okay.
And so those two basic animals would have different requirements that you would not want to feed a cat just strictly dog food, because there would not be enough protein or meat in there. It's okay short term to give a dog cat food because their system is a little bit more open and they're not quite so restricted on what they need. But cats are kind of peculiar animals, especially with nutrition. So you have to be very careful on that. But there are many articles that kind of give me the guidelines, and so I can kind of use that when I look at the labels on the companies. But like Science or Hills is called also Science Diet, and the Royal Canin. I mean, they've done so much research that I'm quite comfortable that if they have a new product out, that I can accept and recommend it, and feel comfortable that the pet owner is going to get the proper nutrition for their pet.
Okay. So then, let's talk specifically about cat food. General population has either cats or dogs. I mean, there are select few that have reptiles, this
Yep.
and that, and we can touch up on that a little bit later. But for cats, wet versus dry. What's the
Excellent, and I'm glad you brought that up, Calvin, because one of the misconceptions for cat owners is they think that canned food has more calories than dry food, but it's actually the opposite. The canned foods are generally 80% water, and so if I have a cat that's overweight, seems to be eating its particular food okay, one of the things I'll recommend right away, instead of giving just a little bit of canned food or no canned food, maybe at least 50% of the diet should become canned food versus the dry. But the dry cat pellets are very high caloric intake. And so that's...
Okay.
So in many cases, because we have weight issues, I really like the canned food. I know it's a little bit messier to mess with. I have to open it, kind of smells. And I feel like a lot of cats... They were originally desert animals. We see a lot of urinary, kidney problems, and I think part of it is the cats don't drink enough water. And as I tease, for 44 years, I've tried to tell the cats, my own and the cats that come in, let's drink more water, and that will help. So far, they really haven't responded too well.
Yeah.
But seriously, if you give the canned food 80% water, it's really a good way to get a lot of water into the pets.
Okay.
And to help minimize urinary and kidney issues.
So it's good to have a mixed.
I think a mix is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes if cats are not eating very well, if you warm the canned food up, it becomes often much more palatable the more they can smell. A lot of times people pull it out of the refrigerator or just open the can, which is at room temperature, and most of the time they'll eat it, but their smell, the taste is very connected with the smell. And so if it's more odoriferous as it's warmed up, it'll probably be more palatable if the cat's a little bit kind of off eating-wise. And the other thing is that if you have a cat, as a kitten did not get canned food, they're less likely to do it if you offer it when they're older. So right away from day one, when you get that kitten, I would recommend a mixture of both. Now, of course, the kitten's growing so fast, I'm not particularly worried about the calories.
Yeah.
So if you primarily just want to give dry food to your kitten,
that's okay
perfectly
too.
fine.
Okay.
But I think by 6 months of age, most cats are full grown, and there's kind of a conception, well, I should feed kitten food to my cat till a year of age, and I don't think that's a good idea. Most of the time we spay and neuter the cats or kittens at 6 months of age. When they lose their hormones by the spay or neuter, it really slows their metabolism, and often they have a tendency to become more overweight too. So roughly 6 months of age, after spayed or neutered, I would get the kitten cat on adult food, not wait till you a year or older of age.
Okay.
Because then I think you're giving too many calories to the cat.
Yeah. Does the cat know when it's eating too much?
No.
Or not? They'll just eat and
They're
eat.
kind of like me when I go to the buffet.
Get your money's worth, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Because
yes, that's good. But no, they don't. I think cats and dogs to a certain extent, they have their survival instinct. If I don't eat everything right in front of me, maybe I should use this for my own when I go to the buffet. But when they eat, they're going to eat as much as they possibly can get because as I tease, they just don't know when their next meal's coming from. And so I think that's why it's important for the pet owner. They have to monitor as the pet gets older. And there are also automatic feeders, and I highly recommend automatic feeders because then it'll deposit a certain amount each portion, and then it's more accurate because most cats will only eat a little bit at a time. The dog will eat once or twice a day, but you cannot do that for your cats.
Okay. I had a friend, she had a cat, and every time she used an auto feeder, so it was portioned out. But it seems like every other time that the cat eats, she would throw back up half, or not the full amount, but she'll throw some food back up, and didn't seem like it was processed or digested at all. What could possibly be signs of any?
At the top of my list, unlike maybe I do this too, eat too fast.
Eat too fast.
Yeah, they just gobble the food. They're so hungry, or maybe there's a competition. Maybe there's 3 or 4 cats in the household,
Yeah.
and by God, I'm going to get all that food because I'm not going to let that other one get
Oh.
it.
I think that cat had the mentality of, I better eat all of this
Yep.
before it's gone.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
So what I really like in recent years, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, now they have food bowls where they have to kind of fight for the food a little bit. Most of the time we make it so easy. We put it on the plate or the bowl, and they just scarf it down. But why don't we make it a little bit more challenging? Just like if they're in the wild, it's going to take them some time to eat the mouse or whatever prey that they
pick off the
get.
bones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I think you need, again, I'm going blank here, but there are these foods that will slow the process down.
It looks like a maze
Yeah,
in the bowl.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
So they have to kind of, paw at it or continue to lick, or sometimes they have to push a little button or a plastic piece to
Yeah.
get to the food.
Yeah.
And so it takes a little bit longer.
Pose a
to
little
do it.
bit of a challenge before
Yep.
they can get the food.
And I think that will really slow the process down. Sometimes that may be, and going back to the vomiting, maybe there is starting to become a medical issue of some sort. Hairballs may be an issue. Cats that excessively groom themselves swallow a lot of hair, and that may result in vomiting. Or maybe it's a food allergy. Maybe there is something truly in the food that is repugnant to the cat or upsets the digestive tract.
Okay. So then that makes me think of, do you recommend people who bring in their dogs or cat or pets with trouble eating or something like that, and you recommend them bring in a small sample of their food that they eat?
Or at least give me the name.
Okay.
Because so many times, and I'm not making this up, but I bet the vast, vast majority of the time, I'll ask, or my technician assistant will ask, what kind of food is the pet on? And they'll go on and on. Well, it's the white bag, that really narrows it down. With the purple lettering, it has a gold mark on top. They remember everything but the name of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I ask again, could you bring in the body weights of your pet? Could you write down what medications? Because just like if you and I go to the doctor, if you're on something else, they want to know exactly what medicines you and I are on. And I need to know the same thing, because we could have drug complications, or maybe if there's something wrong with the pet, maybe it's not getting the proper dosage of the medication. So
just take
if
a picture
I get
of
that
it.
list, or like with my own medicines, I put it in a little piece of paper in my wallet, so
Yeah.
I have it at all times
Yeah.
when I fill out the forms. And so it's just very, very helpful to know
Yeah.
everything. But the brand of food is extremely important. And some people feel like they have to do a mixture. It kind of irritates me a little bit. I think it makes it too difficult. But they want to give the premium food, and then they want to give the junk food. But
It's the red bag and the
Right.
gold bag now.
Exactly.
Good luck figuring that out.
Maybe that's why they're having problem with the colors. But
Yeah.
but anyway, I please write down, or tell the husband. I always tease, the husbands know nothing. They were told first thing in the morning, you got to bring little Poopsie in. And of course, they're not the ones that feed the dog. They don't medicate the dog or cat, so they know very little. But it just truly helpful to know what the pet is on.
Yeah. Okay. So then, easiest thing for me I can think of in the new age is just take a picture on your cell phone
Exactly.
and send it to the pet tech. I think that's the easiest way for them to get it.
That's excellent.
Yeah. There's
One way or the
no
other.
mistaking
Right.
what kind of food that is. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So then the dogs, is there any particular like cats have wet and dry food, but dogs is like
I don't
raw
know how true it is,
human
but I
food?
think there's something to it. I like the dry food because I think it's better for their teeth. That if you have the soft food, more debris is going to build up on the teeth. But if they have the dry food and kind of crunch on it, that alone is not enough to prevent tartar buildup, but I think it slows the process of the teeth developing debris, calculus, tartar, whatever you want to call it, on the tooth itself.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part we do the dry food recommendation, and that's what most people
Okay.
will do. If a dog's not eating very well, then maybe you do get a little bit of canned food and warm it up. But or if I do have an overweight dog, maybe we add a little bit of canned food, because again, there's, like the cats, there's just quite a bit of water in there, and hopefully the water will kind of fill the dog up, less calories, and maybe they won't be begging quite so much with that. So
Is there anything against quote unquote meal prepping for a dog. So instead of buying this, shelf, off the shelf stuff, they actually treat the dog as if they're gonna cook for them, but they'll have all the raw meats, all the vegetables cut up, and all that in a bowl. Is there any benefits for that? Or
the problem is they have done a number of studies on homemade diets, people that prepare at home, and they find out the vast majority are nutritionally deficient in something.
Okay.
And the dog food companies, they know what vitamins and minerals because they've done research through years, and they'll, however, infuse it into the food. But I think in many cases, people do not provide
the balanced nutrition
balances that you need
in the meals.
So I kind of poo-poo it. I mean, there are some people, maybe they have just the dog. That's their family.
Yeah.
And so they have plenty of time. And so it's difficult for me to tell them not to do it, but I...
Because, dogs are man's best friend. And,
exactly.
They eat what we eat.
Well, that's exactly it.
That's why they're always there at the dinner table.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or, the little kids. I have a couple of couples coming in that they have a new puppy, and they have like a 2 or 3 year old, and the puppy is so excited with the 2 or 3 year old because it's throwing food all over the place, the little toddler, and so the dogs are in hog
intentionally feeding the
exactly
to the pets.
Like maybe they don't like the little broccoli or spinach or whatever it is they don't know, but that little dog will eat whatever I give to him.
Yeah.
So, of course, I try to tell them, could you put the dog in another room or outside while you're feeding the toddler, but
that never works
to have
out.
Everybody together type of thing. The other dilemma is, and you kind of brought it up just a little bit, is that, dogs ate raw food in the wild. Why shouldn't we feed it to them?
Yeah.
Well, for many years, and I to a certain extent agree, raw food, why we don't cook our chicken. We do cook our chicken. If we do it, we prepare it.
Yeah.
How many of us eat raw chicken? But then as a dog owner, if you're into the raw natural food, they feed raw chicken. Well, aren't you worried about salmonella or bacterial infestation? And so I try to tell people, I think you need to consider that. It's great that they get natural food, but I think the food needs to be cooked. Well, a couple months ago, when I was working on my book on the pros and cons, we think that dogs have a much better tolerance not getting infected if there is salmonella or bacteria in there. I think they have a higher acid in their stomach, and supposedly that kills the bacteria, and they're not likely, because they purposely in the studies fed contaminated raw meat
just to see what happens.
And rarely did the dogs have any clinical issues with it.
Well,
so it kind of complicates matters.
Yeah.
I still kind of nervous about doing the raw food.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right, exactly.
Hopefully, I wish we were the same, but I guess we're little delicate snowflakes
Indeed.
on Earth.
Yep. So anyway, it's become very interesting to me, the kind of debate, do we feed more raw natural? That's kind of what they're telling people, to do more natural food, not do the processed food. And a lot of people think, and may be right, that the food they get off the shelf, well, that's processed food. Why would if we're not supposed to be eating processed food, why should I be feeding my dog that? But on the other hand, I don't think when you make the diet yourself that you provide the proper nutrition.
You're not processing enough nutrition in there.
Right. So,
gotcha.
So I've kind of gone back and forth and try to be open-minded on both sides. And it's not a simple issue, but I still think, because of all the research done, I think for the majority of animals, the food that's on the shelf is the best way to go.
It's the best way to go.
Yep.
Okay. Better safe than sorry.
Yep.
But I do notice, a lot on social media, people like to make videos of them meal prepping and cooking for their dogs, and they get entertainment out of the dog just chowing down on all the raw foods. I think that's
I understand. I think it makes you feel more involved with your pet if you have the time to do it. I understand where they're coming from, but I just don't know how much studies do they do, because the requirements of dogs and cats are different than people. So you feed the mashed potato, broccoli, and chicken to the dog. Well, is that the same? are you still getting the proper nutrients? You know, if you and I ate consumed something of that sort, and I'm not always sure that that's the case. But,
Okay.
But I understand how involved they want to get, and kudos for them for trying to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's cover up the topic of the other small family members. You know, like your reptiles and hamsters, guinea pigs. What is there any, because it's such a vast amount of variety? Is there anything that comes to mind where you would suggest our viewers to pay attention to when feeding these smaller creatures?
I have not, through the years, worked much with reptiles, so I'm not really going to comment on that because I'm not sure I can give accurate, credible advice. But for the last 20 years, I work with pocket pets, and these would be like hedgehogs, hamsters, guinea pigs, but the little pets you might get at the pet store type thing. And I think you need to be very, very careful on the foods. My favorite, so to speak, are guinea pigs. Monkeys, humans, and guinea pigs cannot make vitamin C. All other, as far as we know, species of animals make their own vitamin C, and so we need that in our drinks, the orange juice, whatever, because if you don't, you know, back in the 1900s, you have heard of scurvy. The sailors, they would not have fresh fruit for some time being on the ship, and they would develop a vitamin C deficiency and result in issues called scurvy. Well, I have had some guinea pigs through the years develop that because the people would not get the guinea pig food. Maybe they had rabbits and thought, I'll just feed everybody the same kind of food.
Yeah.
And so you have to, so as an example, if you have a guinea pig, you want to get a guinea pig food, and these are usually pellets. A lot of feed stores have them. You may not always, you probably won't see it in the grocery store. Maybe some pet stores will have it, but often you may need to go to a feed store that maybe sells farm equipment, that type of thing. But now they're finding that if the bag has been on the shelf for some time, over time the potency of the vitamin C that was in the food loses its effectiveness.
Okay.
And so now they're talking about their vitamin C supplements you can put in the guinea pig's water and that type of thing. So again, with the pigs, the guinea pigs, you just have to be very, very careful with the food.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean those other small creatures, they don't get talked about a lot. You know, usually it's just your average cat and dogs. I have a friend. He has a lot of bearded dragons and snakes. So is there any difference between frozen mice versus live?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Well, I'll tell him then next time. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Tell him you talked to an expert.
Yeah. I know a guy. Okay, so that's good.
But I truly believe when you have, again, they're kind of exotic animals because they're not commonly seen like dogs and cats.
That's right.
But these pocket pets, birds, reptiles, I feel like a lot of issues are because of the husbandry. They don't get the proper nutrition. And so if you do get these animals, I think instead of just buying the food just over the shelf, do a lot of research so you know exactly what they need. But I feel like that's quite a common problem.
Yeah. And what's the nutritional diet for the big guy behind us?
Gets a lot of hay.
It's a lot of hay?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's the other, thank you for bringing that, going back to rabbits and guinea pigs. Their digestive tract is like a horse, speaking of the devil behind you there.
Yeah.
And so we recommend to feed them as much hay as they'll eat. And if you don't feed enough hay or fiber, it causes a lot of digestive disorders. So again, pigs and rabbits, you need to remember doing the hay.
Okay.
And I've had cases come in where they haven't, and their bacteria levels are bad, and they're vomiting, not eating, losing weight, and that type of thing. Okay. So again, it just requires a lot of research to do it. And there aren't as many varieties of food because they're not as popular, not as lucrative for a lot of companies to produce that. But Purina, in St. Louis, they do provide a lot of those foods as well.
Gotcha. Okay. One more animal that I want to cover because of, it's not recent, but not too long ago, of the flu, the
Yes.
what was it? The avian flu?
Yep.
Yeah. So what would be your chicken or hen's diet for that? Is it just the worms, earthworms?
I think it's more the contagiousness of it. Like we have 15 chickens here, and I would be very reluctant to buy some chickens from somebody else, full-grown chickens, and bring them to our area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more that. I mean, we buy the bags of corn and chicken feed for it, and I don't feel like that's the problem. I just think it's the introduction of
outside
chickens, and and who knows where they may have been if you're not comfortable with the chicken owner or the history of the chickens.
Yeah. So then, is there anything to watch out for if someone were to got scared of the flu crisis? And
are you talking like maybe you and I getting it, or
no,
there are other chickens getting it?
Like, because when that happened, everybody was scared that they're not gonna have any eggs, right? So people wanted to start their own chicken farm and chicken coop.
Yep.
So is there any like tips, tricks to help people that are just starting off trying to grow chickens and create have their own eggs? Anything like that to watch out for?
I just would buy the chickens like from a feed store.
Mm-hmm.
Some chickens can be shipped. I used to live in Iowa, and there's a lot of hatcheries there that have chickens, and they'll actually send them in the mail. I remember about 25 years ago, I got a phone call at 5 in the morning, and it was the post office, and wanted to let us know that they had 20 little chicks in a container. Would you please come by and pick them up?
They're causing a little ruckus.
Right. For some reason, they were a little aggravated.
Yeah. To say the least, right?
But I think with the avian flu, it's just keeping your livestock levels low. And the problem is that, it's to the borderline cruel, but with these big hatcheries that have 100,000 chickens completely enclosed, there's not a lot of fresh air that gets in there. You're just asking for trouble. Because they're so close together, and it's kind of passed in as an aerosol when they breathe in or out. That's how it's passed from one bird to the other.
Gotcha.
But if you don't get adults that we don't know a history, you just have your 5 to 15 chickens. I'm not particularly concerned in regards to the avian flu.
Okay, cool. Well, I wanted to touch up on, because you did mention you had a case study of that you wanted to talk about that's regarded to nutrition and diet. So we'll cover that, and then we'll put a close on that on this episode, and then we'll continue on with episode number 6. So let's talk about the case study that you had recently.
Yeah, before we got on the podcast, I was kind of talking to you that a lot of times as veterinarians, we just get instructed about so many diseases, and the vast majority are very rare or unusual or medical cases we don't see very often. And often we get excited that if an animal comes in with a certain presentation, we may think that it's like a fungus or fungal infection, and that's not very common. I have seen some cases. Most time it's bacterial or viral. But so those we kind of call horses that are just regular routine cases. But sometimes in our excitement, we start looking for something more of an exotic or unusual case, and we call that a zebra.
A zebra, yeah.
And so I had a couple cases that I thought, just another routine case, which I'll explain in just a second. And it turned out it was more of a zebra. So it's one of those, don't get too carried away. But on the other hand, maybe you need to keep your differential kind of list of diseases. Be open-minded that maybe it is one of those rare things that happen periodically. Well, in one afternoon, I had 2 of kind of unusual cases. And so one of them, a lady had brought her dog in, and and she brought in a urine sample. The dog seemed like it was drinking more and urinating more. And she kind of thought, it probably had a urinary infection. Well, the dog came in, and gosh, it's lost weight. It'd been eating okay. And then she said, it's been drinking enough water that they have to get up in the middle of the night to take the pet outside. And so I thought, well, gosh, that certainly doesn't seem like just a urinary infection. But anyway, we went ahead and ran the urinalysis. And the urinalysis, like people, includes checking what kind of cells. Are there white blood cells, red blood cells? And then we check to see, is there sugar in the urine, is there protein, and bacteria, and so forth. And I got all excited because in the urine, it can run anywhere from 0 to 4+. So 0, of course, there's no sugar in the urine. 4+ is, oh my God, there's just gobs of sugar, much more than normally should be in there. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It had a 3+ sugar.
Oh, wow.
The pet was drinking a lot of water, had lost weight. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I mean, we see it fairly commonly, but I thought diabetes. That with diabetes, whether human or animal, you have such a high blood sugar that the sugar flows from the blood into the urine. And I remember 5,000 years ago when I was at sports camps to do part of the medical exam, we'd each have to volunteer a urine sample, and they would put a dipstick in there to see if there was sugar or glucose. And that was an easy way at the time, without doing blood work, just to make sure you didn't have diabetes.
Oh, wow.
So that was back in the olden days. But and so I'm not going to explain. Of course, I'm going to tease the audience that there were about 100 of us guys there. And if you want to imagine, there's 100 cups of urine sitting on the table. Yeah, okay. Enough of that. But anyway, I started going on and on to this lady. Oh my gosh. Now, in animals, for the most part, we only treat diabetes with insulin shots. There is a relatively new treatment for cats. But for the most part, you have to give injections twice a day. If you have diabetes, it takes a lot of time and effort. I have had a few pet owners that just, they were older, maybe by themselves. They just could not go through it. And unfortunately, the pet had to be euthanized. So I try to make it very clear that with diabetes, it takes a lot of care. And I want to make sure you want to do this. And the insulin can be relatively expensive. A lot of people don't like to give shots to their pet. They're part of the family. But we didn't have any blood samples. With diabetes, again, you have a high blood sugar, but I just got so carried away, I went on and on about how you treat for diabetes. Well, she agreed to do the blood work, and I got it later in the day, and the blood sugar was perfectly normal.
Oh.
That's not diabetes.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
So I thought, oh, my God, I told this lady I got so excited about being diabetic, you're going to have to give shots and all that, and it was just crazy. But it turns out I've only seen 2 or 3 cases in 40 years, but it's a disease called Fanconi syndrome. Probably a Dr. Fanconi diagnosed or discovered the disease.
Okay.
And what happens is that one of the jobs of the kidney is that if you have sugar in your blood, it tries to keep it prevents the sugar from getting into the urine. Now with diabetes, your blood sugar is too high, it just can't do it. But if the kidney tubules are not able to recycle the sugar or protein or electrolytes, it will flow into the urine. And sure enough, it was more a kidney problem because the potassium was low as well. And so it turned out that in this case, it was a zebra condition.
Oh, wow.
That it was the Fanconi and not diabetes because of the sugar in the urine. And of course, as anybody would, you'd want to do the blood work in addition to the urine, which we did. And found out, I wouldn't start treating a diabetic animal just going by the urine and that type of thing. But I really had to go through the research, and I'm kind of a nerd. I have a file down in my basement. And I do throw old files away, but I keep a lot of files from journals and magazines and what I read. And it just, for the old guy here, it's just easier at this point because online it's sometimes difficult for me to find good articles or accurate articles when it comes to medical issues. So I kind of trust the journals in my own file. But I had a very difficult time finding information on this condition.
At least yours is not tampered with and edited, right? You have concrete evidence from your own studies. Yeah. So then it was a good finding that it wasn't diabetes, or was it a worse condition?
Again, it's just that dilemma. Don't try too hard, but keep an open mind. And it was just a complete surprise. And I felt kind of embarrassed a little bit. I mean, the lady was super nice. I mean, she says, "Oh, you gave a very thorough exam. You explained everything well." Of course, I didn't explain the right things because I had the wrong disease initially. But she was very, very open-minded about it. And unfortunately, there really isn't any good treatment because we don't understand the condition. Eventually, the pet can go into kidney disease or kidney failure. But the articles I read, most of them can live a perfectly normal life, but there are some medications you can do to kind of help the kidneys recycle the sugar, potassium, so they don't lose all those ingredients that you normally wouldn't if the kidneys are functioning properly.
Okay. Wow, that's very
So
interesting.
again, it was just an interesting case I wanted to pass to everybody, and not, because I'm just kind of going, oh yeah, I know everything about diabetes. I'm quite the big shot.
Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how much more time we have, Calvin. I have another one that was kind of interesting. It has twists and turns. Are we still okay?
Let's save that for the next
Okay.
episode.
Sounds
we're gonna
good. So.
yeah, because we're coming up to the 1 hour. Well,
Okay.
well, not 1 hour quite yet, but we'll
Okay.
save that for the next episode.
Okay.
And and this was number 5 of the Language of Pets podcast. And thank you, Dr. Lange, again, with all your wealth
fun,
of
and
knowledge.
I like all your good questions. You're really good. And nutrition is just,
I'm just,
we hardly got anything in school on nutrition. And I tease that if I go to a seminar and they have things on exotic animals like the ferrets, hedgehogs, or new medications or nutrition, who wants to go to nutrition?
yeah.
So I feel bad that I'm not always up on everything with it, but on the other hand, there's not often a lot of information available, and it changes just like for humans. So to me, it's a fascinating field with nutrition and the wide variety of animals we see and unique nutrition for each species of animals. So.
It's too broad of a topic to cover
It is.
all in 1
and so
hour.
Again, like everything else, I mean, please call your veterinarian, talk to him, and discuss and do your own research, because I'm sad to admit that nutrition is probably not our forte for most of us. Now, there are nutritional veterinarians. They go to extra 3 or 4 years of training.
Okay.
And they are veterinary nutritionists. That's their main thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's 25 veterinarians in the country that do that.
Oh, wow.
And I think with all the potential nutritional questions, it may be a little difficult. And they do charge for their time, which is legitimate. I mean, but it just would be very difficult to get hold of a nutritional expert because we have so few, and so
it's
there's
that
just a lot of
supply and
challenges.
demand.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, since nutrition is such a broad topic, if you want us to do another episode covering more of it, if you have questions on it, comment down below, send us an email, and we will make sure to take consideration of creating another episode in the future that we'll do a deeper dive in other species of pets, if you have anything like that.
And then maybe next time or down the road, Calvin, there are a lot of prescription foods for diseases.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that.
I think the audience would be very interested in that, and so I think that would be kind of exciting to talk about down the road as well.
Yeah, sounds good. And we may, if there's enough people that are requesting it, we may have a small little cooking session, and we'll have you be our chef. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Tune in next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and just if you know a friend that has a pet, which probably 90% of Americans
75.
do.
Yeah, it's pretty close to 75% of people have either a dog or a cat in the States.
So,
at least one. And I bet a lot have more than one.
More than one pets, yeah. And chances are they might not be feeding them the right portions, and you'll have those skinny cats, trying to get after the lunch, and you have those, bigger sized companions that are hogging all the food. So, definitely share the video to them and let them know what they could be doing better, or if they're missing anything, and hopefully they'll find some value and learn something from this episode.
And real quick, I have had people with normal weight pets come to the clinic and they're in tears because their friends and neighbors and family are telling them they're not feeding enough because there's so much obesity. We take that as the standard. And then if you see the ribs a little bit on a pet, oh my God, I'm going to have to
They're
report
anorexic.
you, type of thing. So
Yeah.
it is crazy.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So we'll definitely comment down below, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
again,
everyone.
Dr. Lang.